And when you don't love the discomfort, you're not going to continue pushing yourself, and then you're not going to grow, and your business won't grow as fast, you know? And so I think that also is like a really large shift, as like, I know we talked about this a little bit beforehand, but like learning how to like dance with discomfort and kind of view it as a game, you know, where you're like, oh, got rejected from this. Okay, no worries. Let's do this. Okay, let's try this. And it just begins to be like supremely magical feeling.
This is the Living Numbers Podcast, and I am your host, Tony Rambles. This is the place where everyone's interesting if you ask the right questions. Of course, we have to go over 4 P's, 20 seconds. Ready, set, go. Number 1, rate, review wherever you listen to podcasts. Number 2, follow me on IG and TikTok at The Living Numbers Podcast. Number 3, support the vision by purchasing merch. I got the link in the description where you can find all this great stuff. And number 4, subscribe on Apple and Spotify for the behind the scenes content. Only exclusive there. Me and our wonderful guests have had some great conversations beforehand, but you can only get that if you subscribe. I know I was over 20 seconds, but I think it was good. So whenever we have somebody on for the first time, of course, they have to get an elaborate introduction. So, hailing from San Francisco, California, home of the Golden State Warriors and one of the best players of all time, but we won't get into that here. She earned her bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of Kentucky. I got a funny story about that one. Her education experiences vary widely. So this woman continues to challenge herself as she grows in her career, and my hat goes off to her for that. We'll talk about that shortly. Respect has been put on her name by the likes of NBC, Fox, and CBS, to name a few. She's worked in talent management for the better part of her career, which has led her to start her own business, the 30K program, which teaches women how to increase their income by 30K and find a career they, quote unquote, adore. Dancer, entrepreneur, and lifetime recruiter, I present the Mia Smithson. Say hello to the people.
Thank you. That was quite the introduction.
I do my best. So we're going to start here with our first number. The 26th president was Teddy Roosevelt, and your education crossed paths with a school I didn't even know existed called Roosevelt University. Yeah. But you also went to school at Harvard for negotiation. You did some negotiation certifications there, and Yale for a well-being certification. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, you went to University of Kansas. So this is so much education. Were you always kind of like a brainiac or a person that just always wanted to learn? Like, where do you feel like that came from, this always challenging in the academics, so the academic area of your life?
Yeah, great question. So the majority of the men in my family are doctors. Like my dad's a rehabilitation doctor, grandfather's a brain surgeon. Like also all the women, they marry doctors. Like my sister married a little rocket science who has his PhD. So that is definitely like the norm. I guess one thing that is interesting is like the majority of the women in my family, however, are stay-at-home moms. And so I feel like I'm, maybe like not quite on that path at this exact moment in time. But like, yeah, I think I've been very blessed to have been raised in an environment where academics are like cherished and encouraged, which has allowed me to follow my career to where it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So neuropharmacology. Please explain to us what that is.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So neuropsychopharmacology
There you
is
go.
the combination of neuroscience with pharmacology. So it is another way of saying it is like a prescribing neuropsychologist. So what you can do is like CBT, you can do a number of the like counseling modalities. And then in addition to that, you also are able to prescribe medication. And not every state allows for it, but a number of states are more progressive and have clinical neuropsychopharmacologists, which is like literally the longest name ever. But
and I missed the whole part. Neuropsychopharmacology. I'm like, wait, what? So you got your first degree in journalism. So how do these things all cross paths? Because I'm sure you're not just pulling stuff out of a hat like, oh, okay, let's go do this, let's go do this. But there's something that's kind of directing your paths in these different areas of education. Like how did that work?
Yeah, so I guess I have had kind of an unusual career. So I went to KU. I majored in journalism. Right after college, I moved to an island in Thailand, and I taught kindergarten. And then when I got back, I started working as a technical recruiter. And I loved it. It was like really exciting. It was amazing, right? And at the same time, like, I like having a lot of discomfort in my life, which sounds very weird, but like, I believe that discomfort is the currency of your dreams. And I felt like I was like pushed as a recruiter, but I wasn't necessarily pushed to the same like level that I was desiring. And so I was like, I wonder like, and I was looking at my family and like, you know, I remember going on rounds with my dad at the hospital as like a little girl, and I don't know, becoming really familiar with like the medical scene. And so I reached out, like cold LinkedIn messaged a number of neuropsychologists at like UMKC, and I learned a little bit more about it. And what they were describing, like the people that they were helping, was really, really fascinating. And so that is how that started. And then I moved to Chicago because I was accepted into the clinical neuropsychopharmacology doctoral program, which is super exciting. And all at the same time, I was still working as a recruiter while doing my pre-doctoral credits. And I got to the point where I had to make a decision of, giving up my recruiting career and then going the doctoral path, or pursuing entrepreneurship and then further evolving my talent acquisition and management career, right? And it was a really, really hard decision. But at the end of the day, what I realized was that the path that I've chosen, which is, being able to be a business owner and then also grow my talent acquisition and management career, has allowed me to help way more people in this like short, like amount of time that we have on Earth. Like one of my targets is to live until I'm 100, which is 5,217 weeks, right? And so our time on Earth is like really, really limited. And I knew that like if I were to be a clinical neuropsychopharmacologist, I would see maybe 30 to 40 patients per week. But doing what I do now, I'm able to make a lot larger, in my opinion, of an impact in the way that I want to make an impact. So yeah, it's interesting. Like I feel like I would not have anticipated my career to like grow in the direction that it has grown, but it has like evolved like past the point of when I guess what I was anticipating as like a kid, which is cool.
Right. So as a kid, right, because I'm a high school teacher, I kind of get to see these kids from like coming into high school as teenagers. They're growing, and a lot of them are just like straight line grades above everything. They got 5 or 6 AP classes, which are higher level courses for those people who don't know. And so they may be graduating high school as like a college sophomore or junior because they've taken so many classes and gotten so many credits. Were you that person like in second grade? Like, hey, why did I get a 98 on this spelling test? Like, I'm pretty sure I got this right. Were you that person like all the way through school, or did that click at a different point?
Yeah, I've always been very driven, and I was in a number of honors and AP classes, which was amazing. I was also super involved in extracurricular activities. So in sixth grade, I started running track. And then in seventh grade, I started volleyball. And then I also like started writing music as like a sixth grader. And then when I was in sixth grade, I had my high school band play like my first composition. And then I had in seventh grade our like choir play a piece that I wrote. And then in eighth grade, I had one of the school plays did a piece that I wrote as well. And then in high school, I took music composition courses as well. And so like, I don't know, like I would say I've always been very like creative. And like, I like, there are some people who like, they do their work and then they like go and they like watch TV and hang out and like don't really do anything. And I've like never been that way. Like I've always had some sort of like a side hobby or something that I'm like building and evolving and like, yeah.
That's impressive. I think, okay, all right, I'm going to give you some kudos here. So I think that some people, they just operate at like a different level of horsepower. I think that's how Joe Rogan described it one time. Because he was talking about, I think he was talking about Kanye. And so some people mentally, like you said, like you're not watching TV and stuff. You're writing music for your middle school and you're a middle schooler. And you're taking all of these AP classes. And then you go, well, you know, I'm not being pushed enough as a recruiter and being one of the best around. Maybe I could try my hand at doctorate classes. It's like your brain operates at a different level than normal people. Now, you probably don't think so. You're like, you know, anybody can do this. Anybody can do the stuff that I'm doing if you just challenge yourself and you push yourself. I think we all have like areas that we're great in. But some people, they're great across many different areas. And I think you are one of those people. Now, you're probably going to be like, oh, you know, stop it. You know, everybody can. But I'm just going to say, you know, I talk to a lot of people and a lot of successful people. But you're writing music in middle school that was accepted by the adults to go, okay, yeah, we feel like this is good enough for us to play it and show it to everybody. You know, all of these different kinds of things working together. I'm gonna literally take my hat off to you because you're doing amazing, amazing things. And I'm sure you have something to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I will say, like, I don't do things that I don't want to do. So everything that I've done throughout my career, like I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm also one of those weird people who like, I think work is really fun. Like I love going to work in the morning. I think it's deeply enjoyable and I can make a really big impact. And so like, it's not something that I dread. It's something that I derive just so much excitement and like joy from. And even like music wasn't quote unquote like work, but like it was still like an opportunity to be creative, and it was really fun. I think that so one of the stats that fascinates me is that 4.2% of female-owned businesses do 7 figures of annual recurring revenue or above. It's only 4.2%. And one of the reasons why I think that is because like work in any way, shape, or form, like once again, there is a large amount of discomfort. And I think it's really easy to not love the discomfort. And when you don't love the discomfort, you're not going to continue pushing yourself, and then you're not going to grow, and your business won't grow as fast, And so I think that also is like a really large shift, as like, I know we talked about this a little bit beforehand, but like learning how to like dance with discomfort and kind of view it as a game, where you're like, oh, got rejected from this. Okay, no worries. Let's do this. Okay, let's try this. And it just begins to be like supremely magical feeling, which sounds very, I guess, kind of unusual. Maybe you are in a different way, but yeah.
Okay. The dance with discomfort. That's gonna keep going. I really like it. But you said something which we do have in common that we definitely can't skip over, which is you taught over in Thailand, and that's gonna bring us to our next number because based on LinkedIn, it was for 14 months. I actually taught English in China it wasn't quite a full year. It was like 360 days. It was off a year by like a few days. So how was that experience for you? What did you experience over there in Phuket?
Oh yeah, I do need to update my LinkedIn because mine was like a little bit less than a year as well. But it was it was amazing. So okay, when I moved, at the time I had a lime green beetle bag. And I literally put like some belongings in that. And then I just packed one suitcase and like boarded the plane to move to Thailand. You know what I'm saying? And so I like drastically decreased my desire for belongings when all I had was just a suitcase and I was in a foreign country. And yeah, I moved there not knowing anybody, not knowing the language at all. And it was so enjoyable. Like I realized that like travel can be really, really fun. And that like there are friendly people everywhere. And it was really fun. Like I taught kindergarten specifically. So the kids were like super cute and they get really excited. And at the time, there was Frozen had just come out. And I learned like all the Frozen songs on my guitar. And so as a treat, like after we'd finish the like classroom lessons, I would play one of the Frozen songs, which was in English. They were trying to learn English. So it was perfect. And so it was like really, really, really magical. So I feel really blessed. How was your experience?
It sounded like a lot like what you had where there was this energy always like from the kids. Like they were always psyched and like ready to see you because I taught kindergarten age kids too. So the kids did you teach in a training center or a public school or what kind of school did you teach at?
Yeah, it was an international immersion academy. So it was primarily the like wealthier governmental officials that would send their kids there.
Those international schools, it seemed like those were the best places. If you could get into one, those were the best places to teach.
100%. Yes.
Yep. I taught at a training center, which is kind of like entry level teaching. And so I had like classes on the weekend or after school in the evening times. And it'll be like anywhere from 8 to 12, maybe from 4 to 6, and then you may have a class that's a little bit older. And then you have a class I only had one class that was kind of like middle schoolers. Most of them were like those really young kids where they just want to like run and jump. You got your stuffed animal that you're throwing around the class. You go, bear, bear, bear. You throw it and they just go crazy. So, yeah, same. It was very fun. I remember Suzhou, China very fondly. And we talked about a question beforehand, the who, what, when, where question. And I met so many great people there. A lot of them from the States, guy from Baltimore. That was great. Guy from California, Momo. That's what we called them. And we kind of built this community that was awesome. And you are going from like San Francisco to Kansas to Phuket, Thailand. Did you ever did you always have this sense of adventure, like wanting to move around and be in these different places? Is that part of your being uncomfortable mindset?
Yeah, I love traveling. I want to visit all the countries in my lifetime. So yeah, I could see myself also living abroad again in the future. Like it is, I think it's really, really fun. Like there's so much of the world that like is incredible. Why not explore?
Hmm. Yeah, and you get to see, oh, there's another way to live. Like everybody doesn't do things like the United States of America. And you go, well, dang, they kind of do this a little bit better than how we do it over there.
Yeah.
I remember like the fruit was always so fresh. The fruit was amazing over there.
Did they have little fruit stands of like freshly picked fruit that you like go pick up?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
There was always like a stand, and sometimes they were making, like street food, which was the absolute best. The fruit was always great. I mean, we remember like strawberries and cherries specifically. I didn't even eat cherries before I left America. Like they were that good there that we had to. How did you find your job there?
Yeah, I got TEFL certified and then
Hmm.
I applied to like a ton of places and then interviewed. And yeah, the school, I was really selective with the places that I applied to because I knew I wanted to be able to have savings built from that experience. And so it was really cool because I earned way more than I needed to live off of, which was super nice. And then when I went back to the States, allows for more padding. But yeah, I don't know. I've always loved, this sounds very weird again, but I've always loved like applying for jobs and like the process of like creating a resume and like sending it out. I don't know. Like it was very like exciting. And also because I didn't tell my family anything until I had the job, the plane ticket booked, and I was TEFL certified and everything. And then I was like, oh, I'm moving to Thailand. So it was like,
Hey guys, by the way, I won't be here next week.
yeah, like I kind of felt like a little bit rebellious. And I love my parents dearly, but they were like terrified of me moving across the country. And I knew they would be. And I knew that if I told them earlier, then they'd be like, oh, well, what if you moved to like South Carolina? That seems safer. So, yeah.
Did you have some last question? Because whenever I hear somebody talk English abroad, I'm like, we gotta talk about that because
Yeah.
I had that experience. Uh, what are some maybe stereotypes or things that you had going in about a place that you feel like, oh, okay, like that's not at all how I thought about it. And I asked that question with this backdrop of America or the United States depicts China in a certain way. So
Yeah.
people were asking me questions like, are you going to be safe over there? Is the government looking for you? It was all these like, to me, weird questions because while I was over there, it was just like life here. People go to work, they go to the grocery store, they have friends, we play basketball. There was nothing really, I'm not gonna say there was nothing different because nothing was in English. But as far as like the day to day activities that people did in life was pretty much the same. So is there anything that sticks out for you that when you got there was kind of dispelled once you started kind of meeting people and living life?
Okay, the day-to-day activities were definitely different. Like, that is for sure. I like rode a motorbike because everyone rode motorbikes on the left side of the road.
Yep.
So that was an adjustment. I'm already not a great driver. Put me on the left side of the road in a new bike. That was not a great combination, but we made it through. And then also, island hopping is so popular in Phuket. And so literally we'd work 4 days and then every Friday we would go island hopping. So we go to like PP or like one of the other islands and you take a long tail boat. They're literally boats that have a long tail. Anyways, and then you get in there and then you just literally like sail in your boat to these like islands and then you just like camp out there over the weekend and just like chill and like play guitar on the beach and just like hang out with people, and like people get on Airbnb, and like I literally would do that like a ton, and like I'd go with a lot of like teacher friends and everything. So like it was like very much a magical adventure, I would say. And I didn't know any of that would exist. Like similar to you, I thought there would be safety issues, which it was like Thai people are very safe. Like it's like a Buddhist country. They're honestly, Americans are like more hostile than the Thai. The Thai are like, they literally bow as part of their hello. Like they're very kind people. So
Yeah, I never felt unsafe there. Like not for 1 second. No matter what time of day it was, no matter where I was, I always felt like, okay, this is fine. As opposed to America, and yeah, that's a totally different story.
yeah.
But I think it's time that we talk about how you got to the 30K program. So I was looking through your IG, as I always do, because I'm trying to find these nuggets, about people so I can bring them up. And on April 25th, you posted this quote that I felt like it resonated with me. It said, "Big dreams start with small, consistent actions." I said, yes, that's the one. I need that. So what are some of the consistent actions that you had to kind of start off with when you realize, okay, I think I got a business on my hands? What is like the first few things that you had to implement?
Yeah, that's such a great point. And I will say that like that quote I did not understand that quote when I was younger. I was obsessed with it. I was like, if I plan it, it will come true, which no. You need to have like the plan and the action. But yeah, I think when you have a why that's strong enough, then anything is possible. What I mean by that is like the reason for the 30K program is twofold. So first, I found out that I was underpaid by $30,000, which felt really horrible. And I like never wanted any woman to ever experience that again. And also, like throughout my 7 years in talent acquisition and management, I've interviewed a little over 5,000 people. Roughly half were women, so about 2,500. And if I had to estimate, about 2/3, so about 1,600, didn't negotiate. So I've personally heard literally 1,600 women on a call not negotiate. And then at the same time, right, I've interviewed about 2,500 men. And have they negotiated? Oh, you want to bet your bottom dollar. And recruiters are trained to say, what's the salary range that you're targeting, right? And if the person says a number, right, like the recruiter will typically start them at like the lower end of the pay band so that they have room to grow. But if the person can effectively negotiate a little bit higher, then, typically a little bit more wiggle room. I mean, not always, but we definitely do see it. And so, yeah, it was like the problem was like, I just saw it everywhere, right? Problem was in my own life. And then the problem was in the lives of those around me. And that strong of a why spurs action.
So, dang, 30 grand, that's a lot. So what's the first thing you did to start kind of putting a business together? Because you knew clearly that there was a problem.
Yeah.
So you go, all right, well, how do I help to kind of bridge this gap and help people with this thing that they're having trouble with?
Yeah. I created a profile on Bark, BARK, and I didn't have a website. I just put in my LinkedIn profile, and I was like, I'm a career and life coach. That's what I call myself. And my first weekend, I signed a client, which was really, really cool. And then I also realized that no one wanted me to be their life coach, but they would hire me to be their career coach. And so, yeah, it's interesting. Like, I feel like I've done so many things. Like, entrepreneurship is like not a straight edge. Like you just go in this way and everything like perfectly opens. Like I felt like I was like a blind person in a dark room. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but we're just going to try things and see what works, and then do more of the things that work and do less of the things that don't work. That is really what I've done. Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad you said that, because I feel like just in this world that we live in, the social media world, like everybody, not everybody, a lot of people are out there pretending to have every answer that you could possibly need, when that's just not how life works. That's not how entrepreneurship works. That's not how podcasts work. You know, you have to, like you said, do a bunch of different stuff, see what works, see what doesn't, and then continue on that journey. So there obviously had to have been a turning point. So what was it for you that gave you the confidence to go, okay, I think this is working?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I will be totally transparent. I am still a global director of talent management. So that is still my day job. And then I also have a business. But yeah, what has made me like continue to grow my business and work the Saturdays and like do the, I don't know, go above and beyond, I would say is like, it is, like I think solving the gender pay gap is like one of the reasons why I'm on Earth. I know that sounds really dramatic, but yeah, I have a really, really strong why. And so when I like really early on, I would try to like be very efficient and very effective at what I would do. And like, instead of going maybe the slower path. So like, for instance, I was like, you know what? I'm going to send like a whole bunch of cold emails because I've done it for recruiting. And of the 5,000 people that I've interviewed, like 80% of them, I found through a cold message, right? So I'm like, I know how to do this. And so I set up these like, optimized workflows that like were all like going out. And then I literally set up these like LinkedIn profiles. I had like automated all this stuff, but I hadn't like tested the messaging enough before I like automated the system. And so then I had like all of these people who were like blocking me because the message like got encrypted, and it was like absolutely crazy. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not right. And so basically, okay, I don't know if you're familiar with Y Combinator. They're like the Harvard of startup accelerators, but they have this motto called like do things that don't scale. And I was doing the things that were scaling because that is how I was like trained in corporate America. Right? It's like, well, if you're going to do something, you need to have a process, and then it needs to follow this specific thing, and then it needs to be built to scale so that other people can take it over. But when you're like building and when you're having a lean, mean machine, you got to like do the things that are not scaling. So that was like one of the harder lessons for me to learn, because I tried to make it so efficient so early, which didn't allow me to test fast enough and create like my MVP. So,
yeah. Wow. That's good. That's a good, very specific story. Like people can go, okay, let's try to, we can't skip steps, you know?
Yeah, the big thing is like, what I've learned is, yeah, do the things that do not scale. I know Airbnb is really, really famous for this, where they would photograph all of the houses themselves. And then they would like literally meet up with a person, and they would like, I remember there was a story where they literally had their own house on it. And they like, they like had rented it out. And like the guy just like, he had no idea where he was going to sleep that night because he ended up renting out his own place. And he just like bunked in with a friend. Like they were doing all of these things that didn't scale, but it allowed them to like get closer to their target market, to really understand like the problems like upfront and up close. And so, yeah, to anyone who wants to start a business, like I think that's one of the best pieces of advice is like take consistent action. Like you should feel really horrible a lot of the time by taking so much action that you're getting a lot of rejection and a lot of failure. Like that's a really great sign. And then at the same time, do the things that don't scale, because that will allow you to get the data and like the learnings in order to later on build those like systems and processes and efficiencies in order to allow you to like really grow and progress.
So for you, how do you balance working your day job and working your night job?
Yeah. Well, so I'll typically get up early and I'll work on my business before I start my day job, which helps. And then I do work most Saturdays. I really like working. I know that sounds very weird, but like I really enjoy it. Like, and then I do intermittent fasting, so I never like need to take a lunch break. So then I'll typically, yeah, well, it works really well. Like I just notice I have like really stable energy by not having lunch, and so then I'll typically have, like do something during that hour as well. But like, I have learned how to have like how to be very effective at prioritizing what is important, because when you don't have 40 hours a week to devote to your business, like there are like a few things that I can do and do really, really, really well. But then I also did hire someone who honestly has been like amazing. She used to work at Airbnb France. She was there for like 4 years, and she's also done some stuff at Yale as well. She's like literally amazing. And I hired her like right in the very beginning, and she helped me to design the website. Like when you log in, you know, those like pop-ups and all that stuff, like she's like amazing with design. And so she was also a huge help in like all of the things that like I don't really enjoy doing and I'm not really great at. Like, and this is once again, one of the benefits of having a day job is that like I was able to afford, you know, hiring someone to help me like build out some of this stuff. And that's like a luxury that I think not everybody has. But I feel grateful to have,
What's the difference, right? We're going to kind of merge them here. What's the difference between recruiting for people to come on and work for the places that you're at Faith Life, and then taking on clients as far as, you know, looking at people to bring in? Because I don't know if you accept anybody who asks for your services, or is it like a kind of a process of taking on some people and not taking on others? So what's the difference between the two? Because you're still kind of vetting people and trying to see best fit.
It's definitely been interesting. So when you are a recruiter, the person is typically, at least from my experience, like really working to sell you. Like they are the person for you. Like you've got to hire them. They're like the perfect fit. You know, they like heavily research everything about the company, and they show up and they're like super well dressed, and like, you know, you have something that they want, right? And so it's a dynamic that I don't know, like even holding the space for someone when you're recruiting and like having like enough time for pauses. Like there's a little bit of crossover between that and working with clients, but it's definitely different. Because when you're on with a client, I think when I first started, I was like, okay, I need to sell them as to why I'm the best coach for them, right? And when you're in like the selling or the salesy mode, then it really doesn't work. But instead, when you're like, how can I help this person? If they decide that I'm the right coach for them, that's awesome. If they don't, that's awesome as well. Because like I want what is best for this person, regardless of whether they're my client or not. And so that mindset was like hard for me to learn, because I was like, well, I want to sign every client, every single person, right? But not everyone was like meant to be your client. And so for me, it's been a lot of like unattachment to the results, and where like I literally have the words transformational, imperfect service. I like write that above. I always have like a doc that has like my prep for any consult call that I go into. And I always have that quote, because it allows me to be like, okay, I'm here to be of service. And I'm also going to be imperfect. There's going to be things that I say that don't resonate. There's going to be like imperfections, but that's part of the transformation. Right. So it's like transformational imperfect service. Like I will do what is best for this client. So, yeah, I would say there are definitely similarities between recruiting for employees and then, helping clients. But yeah, there are definitely differences as well.
Okay. I think that we've come to a great point for us to talk about our three whats. So I asked three questions to every person that I have on the show. So, what number one? What's an opinion that you have that will be considered unpopular?
I don't think that college is necessary. For some reason, I thought it was.
Talk that.
Yeah, right? You're like told it's a requirement, but there's a lot of honestly really successful friends that I have that didn't go to college and have like really strong businesses and have done all these other things. So yeah, like question the traditional path and do what is best for you would be my advice to anyone, in middle or high school.
Okay. You jumped one of my questions. Actually, one of the questions is, what advice would you give to someone in high school? We can take that. I think it's great because I talk about it all the time with my kids anyway. And you're not the only person that shares that viewpoint, especially with how competitive it is. But not just, this is going to send me off into a whole nother direction because I feel like these colleges are tricking people, as far as, acceptance rates and how much it costs and all that stuff. That'll send me off the edge. Okay, so we're gonna do our second what, since you covered the first two. I guess that will make it our third one. Okay, this will be interesting since you are clearly a brainiac and can do many, many, many things. If you weren't doing the 30K program, what field would you be in? What would you be doing differently? Would it be doctor? I mean, I guess it could be music. What would you say?
Yeah. If I wasn't doing the 30K program, I would be a neuropsychopharmacologist who built a personal brand. That was what I was between. I was like, I knew that just having my own practice wouldn't have enough like discomfort, which once again sounds weird, but it wouldn't be like intense enough. And so I would, if I would have gone that path, I would have built a personal brand while opening up my own clinic. Yeah, so that was once again a really hard decision to turn down that life, but I am really grateful for the path that I've chosen and for the people that I get to help every day.
Do you think you'll go back to it? Like at some point go, you know what? It's time. It's time to be a neuropsychopharmacologist.
It's interesting. I think
a lot of thoughts happening.
I think I love business so much that as long as I'm doing something that has to do with business, I'd enjoy it. So maybe I will get my doctorate at some point in my career, but it isn't, I guess, important to me like it was at one point. What's important to me is like doing what I love. And honestly, I freaking love business. That's very weird, I know, but like, it's so interesting. It's literally like, I don't understand people who play Monopoly. There are people actually playing with real houses, real money. Like, why are we playing this game? Like, I'm not a board game person. Like, we do this in real life. So, yeah, I think as long as I'm in doing business of some kind and I'm able to make it, make a living that makes a difference, that's the most important thing. Having like a specific like doctorate or something, I'm not attached to.
Wow. So don't be attached, guys. Go through life. Try to figure it out. Of course, we all want to figure it out as soon as we can, but try stuff, throw things at the wall, see what sticks, see what you like. Mia said over and over, I'm not doing stuff that I don't like doing. She said that, I don't know, 2 or 3 times here, and I think that is super important because when you like it, it's different. It's so much different. I've had so many jobs, many of which I did not like, and I did not stay with those places. But if you do need help, I want you to be able to contact Mia. So, Mia, can you please tell everybody where can they find you? How can they enlist your services?
Yeah, go to the30kprogram.com, and when you go there, you will get a pop-up for Master the 7 Seconds. And in that, it's completely free, and it has resumes from friends of mine who've worked at Google, Airbnb, and Microsoft. And it's just like chock full of entirely free help. So, yeah, enjoy.
Well, thank you, Mia, for coming on. It has been an absolute pleasure. So much fun. I mean, your brain just works at a different capacity, when you just start talking about all the stuff that you do, it's quite ridiculous to me in a good way. So thank you for coming on, sharing this time with me. And yeah. Any last words?
Okay, my last words to your guests are, do something that scares you today. If you feel the little tingle in your stomach, keep going.
Thank you all. Make sure you go check out Mia, the 30K program. Make sure you all follow me on IG and TikTok. That's where I post pretty much everything. At the Living Numbers Podcast, make sure y'all subscribe. I got the Linktree link down there. And I also do teach people how to do interviews and public speaking and all that great stuff. So I'm challenging myself too, Mia. I hope you're proud. I will see you all in the next ramble. Voila.
You are a great
That comes on.
Yeah.
I think so.
You run a tight ship. That was great.